Welcome to the Seven Figure Leaders podcast. This podcast was created to celebrate the success stories of seven-figure business owners, giving them a platform to share their insights and lessons learned in order to inspire other business owners. As well as that, it's an opportunity to build new connections. So if you're a seven-figure business owner or someone who works with seven-figure business owners and you're looking for introductions to potential stakeholders, strategic partners and clients, I'd love to hear from you or have you on as a guest and see if I can help make those connections for you. Just go to synergycfosolutions.co. That's synergycfosolutions.co and click podcast. And there you'll find the link to apply. Welcome. Today we've got Tom O'Toole from Bloom Construction. Welcome, Tom.
Thanks for having me, Tom. Great to be here.
Pleasure to have you. So you run a kind of refurbishment business in the construction space. So best place to start is for you to give us an overview of what you do and the types of clients that you help.
Yeah. So we operate in the refurbishment and retrofit market. Retrofit's a bit more of a modern term that's come about mostly through sustainability, I would say. And yeah, we operate in the sub £10 million space for contract value. And it's been predominantly so far within the commercial space, but we've expanded into other areas like education, resi, and historic buildings also bit more recently. So yeah, that's in a nutshell what we do. We like to say to our clients, the worse state the building's in, the better. And we really enjoy getting in and understanding buildings. And we see our specific set of expertise in getting in really before any work is planned, getting to understand the designs early and figuring out what the building might be capable of achieving. So that's where we are in a nutshell, I suppose.
Okay. And so let's go back to when you founded the business. How did it start and what were you doing before that?
Well, I spent nearly all my working career in construction. I worked up off the tools degree, and then I eventually got into a business where I was a manager and mainly on the production side. And then after that, I skipped through to a smaller business. So I used to work for much bigger businesses, went to a smaller business and learned the business of construction, which I didn't have a clue about before I joined that business. So that was the business previous to the one that we're operating in now. And I really, really learned how important cash flow is, how important look aheads are, and staff management, all these other things that didn't come with site operations. And yeah, strategically there was differences in that business. I ended up running it day to day, but longer term, I couldn't stay there because, well, my aspirations weren't being met, and it was just a difference in how people wanted to live their lives ultimately. So my commercial lead, John, and I decided to set up Bloom, and that's really how we went kind of out on the journey. But we also saw an opportunity in the market space. So we were hearing quite a lot that the space that we want to operate in was either being underserviced by bigger contractors or not professionally serviced enough by the smaller ones. So just for a bit of context, you might have a developer client that runs 100 million quid projects, but they want to sign similar contracts for people that are running like 500 grand projects or million quid projects or 5 million. So that gets very tricky, and you need a good professional mindset to operate in those environments.
So just to be clear, the gap in the market that you spotted was in that 500 to 5 million projects range.
Yeah, well, we say we operate between 50 grand and 10 million. But yeah, it's a project scale that's quite interesting, particularly in the refurb and retrofit. It's a certain size building. It's a certain size of management team that delivers it. Yeah, so we saw like a real, and it has proven to be the case in terms of how we've grown the business.
Mm-hmm. And why do you think that was underserved? That part of the market was underserved previously?
It's difficult to say. I think it's the emergence of clients protecting risk. So when I was initially managing projects, say, even on the operation side, say 10, 12 years ago, and the amount of, in the last business, the amount of turnover I was able to look after in my team versus now is completely changed because compliance has changed. Clients want more, they need more metrics around what you're doing. Obviously on health and safety, which is a massive part of our industry, but also now on sustainability. So the amount of people and the amount of professionalism that's that's um, that's needed to run these projects has completely changed.
Mm.
I heard a stat a couple of years ago from a cost consultant, and they said that before COVID, since prior to COVID, to I think a 2023, 24 position, it was unrelated to just construction materials going up and all the sort of classics. The compliance side of it had gone up, and the management of that side had gone up like 10, 15%
Mm.
on project value. So that's huge.
And what are the costs in that compliance?
It's people. It's people and expertise. And you've got all these consultants that have emerged, but also the caliber of, to be quite blunt, the caliber of staff that we need has gone up. The average salary count has gone up significantly. If you want, if I need or if we need professional people to operate in these environments, we have to pay more money.
Yeah.
We need people that are agile, versatile, you name it, to do that. So that's it's staff costs. And then for the client side of it, I suppose developers, it's all these additional consultants they need to give them the outcomes that they want. All of that has driven up the, the the cost of these projects. And I suppose on smaller projects that can be disproportionate
Yeah.
to the project size. Whereas on maybe £100 million project, there's it's spread out a little bit better.
Yeah. And there's still enough margin in there for you with all these additional compliance costs?
Well, ultimately, I suppose it gets passed to the client. We operate in a competitive environment. A lot of the time, we're out there tendering and winning projects. So the outcome of that ultimately lands with the client. But being careful about how we tender and making sure that we have all those elements covered, that's our first sort of port of call, and offering that value to the client thereafter.
Yeah. Okay. So shifting focus a little bit, in terms of actually starting the business and scaling it, what kind of milestones did you hit? Obviously, you're past the few million in revenue mark, but what were the kind of turning points in terms of the way that you ran the business?
Yeah, that's a good question. Just for a bit of context, and I suppose we're still quite early in our journey. We're just about to close the end of our third financial year this month, and we're likely to post about eight and a half to maybe just under 9 million in revenue, and that's up from 4.3 at the end of last year and 1.3 the previous year. I think it's initially, and the bit that maybe I completely, I guess, underestimated was filling the funnel and making sure the work stays coming in. Um, they might sound like big financial jumps, and they are, but we're wanting to get to this level as quickly as it was safe to do, because we wanted to operate in a certain professionalism in terms of contracts and terms of their size. So size generally tends to bring a bit more professionalism. And if we were doing 15, 100 grand contracts for the next 10 years, we would struggle to achieve and get to where we wanted to get. But I think really there's a few different moments. I suppose when we figured out what our sell to the marketplace was, once the initial sort of black book of contacts ran out. And by the way, there's no guarantee within that black book anyway. But I think the initial sort of contacts was enough for the first year and a half.
Yeah.
But then we quickly realized that if we wanted to continue to grow, continue to keep the people we had to really like hone in on what our sell to the marketplace was and why we were doing this. That was a big sort of moment in time, bringing in the marketing side of it, the business development side of it, which I also, and I don't, maybe my business partner felt the same, but quickly realized how bad I was at selling.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether I've gotten much better, but I've definitely gotten more strategic with it, and we
Yeah.
have gotten more strategic with it as a business.
Yeah. And how has your role as one of the founders changed? Presumably at the beginning, you're doing everything. And then as you scale past a certain revenue number, then you've got other people that can take care of some of the day to day. How's that been
Yeah,
for you?
I would say for the first financial year, which was a short one actually, first 7 or 8 months are the bones of that year. Myself and John, as you say, were doing almost everything. We had people on the ground, on site, but in terms of like supporting projects, we didn't have many concurrent. But yeah, in terms of supporting, we were doing more or less all the work. And I think over time, and particularly in 2024, we brought in a team structure, brought in a head of projects, brought in commercial leads, um, and the like. So I suppose my role has evolved and changed away from sort of managing the work interfaces to managing people, managing the clients.
Yeah.
I'm still very, very much involved in the operational side of the projects, and I want to know what's going on. I want to know how they're being planned and making sure they're being planned in the right way. And of course, staying close to clients is always key.
Mm. And what do you think the biggest challenge has been in growing the business to where it is now over the 3 years that you've been around for?
I think with keeping control of cash, and making sure that we did that in a really considered way. We did have the experience in the previous business, which helped us a lot. So we were involved in kind of look aheads and cash flow. And what we learned, coming into this business was the control there, waiting for your accountant to tell you how you did
Mm.
is
Yeah.
completely useless.
Sounds like you've been reading my LinkedIn posts.
Sorry.
Sounds like you've been reading my LinkedIn posts.
Yeah, exactly.
And so how have
Um,
you done that? How have you kept on top of cash? How have you kept on top of the numbers
we
between
we
patient?
yeah, we look ahead. I mean, we're in a kind of a, we're not we don't have like a product out there that's got general sales. We need to get in projects which are high value components or commodities. So in that sense, it's where do projects that we're targeting, where are they in our cash cycle? When are we, looking ahead at when we're going to get paid on a monthly basis, weekly basis, but monthly sort of cash flow overview. And then basing our decisions, hiring decisions or project risk profiles. In our world, projects come with all sorts of risk profiles
Yeah.
that you kind of need to bake in to the forward planning.
Can you
And
give an example of that?
well, there's a difference between, say, we do some fit out work, some kind of like, I suppose, light touch refurbishment work, and you're not really getting into the guts of a building when you're doing that work. You can see it all. It's quite easy to quantify what's going to come up and what you're going to do. And if that's paired with a client and a team that you know really well, that's quite a low risk
Mm.
cash forecast situation because it's you feel like you can really depend on it.
And
Whereas if you're
the client's paying you fixed price, they always want a fixed price, so you can't just pass on.
always want a fixed price, I mean there is and can be some caveats and movement to that, but generally we are taking ownership of that from our clients. And more, in the past, clients held a bit more of that risk, but these days, it's generally shoved more towards the contractor.
Mm.
And then I suppose a high risk scenario is a building, and these are the situations we also enjoy. These are buildings where it's kind of unfolding, and we're trying to lean into our expertise to plan, but they can be high risk situations for your cash, because something might stop or stall the project, and your cash flow will stop and stall with that. Or, just about as it's about to get moving, something might happen. In terms of like the client's positioning or decision making, that can change things in an instant. We had a scenario last year where we thought we were pretty much nailed on for 5 million quid of revenue, and as it turned out, when we got into the detail of the project, it ended up being that an extra 2 million quid needed to be spent on compliance that wasn't previously considered by the client. So the project died,
So
and
yeah, so obviously you had to say no to that, otherwise you'd have made a big loss on it.
we had to say no. The project got shelved, and we had to then go and figure out how we were going to fill a 5 million cash void in what was a much smaller business. And we were, I've just told you we posted, or we're about to post turnover figures of 8.9 million. So if you
Yeah.
take 5 million out of that,
Yeah.
and that's quite a lot of revenue to look for with a team that's ready and there to deliver it.
Yeah. I've got a few construction clients, and they're as you said, the revenue is very lumpy. So they might have one or two projects that are 3 to 5 million in a year, and that moves the dial massively. So it makes forecasting very difficult, because you forecast assuming the project's going to happen, or you forecast assuming it's not going to happen. But
Mm,
that's plus or minus 5 mil per project, 3 to 5 mil per project. So it does make forecasting difficult. And
mm.
I suppose that's same thing you're describing there, really.
Yeah, it's huge, whether a project happens or not. And we've over time developed and tried to get a bit more clever about what situations we're involved in and how likely these projects are to go ahead. So if a client comes to us and says that they've got a project and they haven't assessed the budget, that's an immediate red flag,
Mm.
because they could be thinking they want to spend 2 million, and it could be 3 million. And as I said, the project just dies then. So we've a tender or situational go or no go scoring system that we generally apply. So we're more often than not involved in the right scenario, and trying to de-risk it as
Mm.
best we can.
Excellent. And so looking ahead, what's next for the business? Where are you trying to get to?
Yeah, we've got a longer term strategy to continue to grow. I think we're moving away from. I think in the first sort of 2.5 years, we did a lot of one off projects. We serviced them really well, so we're starting to move into a phase now where there's enough time has passed where people are coming back to us for repeat business.
Yeah.
So we're focusing more now on the sort of partnership side of it. The sort of one-off projects are they're great for the here and now, and maybe a cash hit, but it's the partnerships that are actually ultimately going to define the longer term success of the business. So that's a sort of a shift that's happening now, um, and we would expect this year. We're probably, because we're so early in our journey, wasn't possible to have like 75% repeat client per se, or 90, but we're moving into that kind of realm this year where people they've got projects that are coming up, and we're going to be involved in them. So that partnership side of it is huge for us, and to continue to grow the business with some stability where you can go and talk to those people, see what's coming up, protect that sort of cash flow. We go and meet people, we show them our position, we show them where we've got gaps, and we see if there's a bit of cross pollination there. We've got a space in 2 or 3 quarters time for X size projects. Have you got anything? Those kinds of conversations have started to happen more regularly recently.
Okay.
Um,
Who could be one of those partners for you? What types of people? So anyone listening who might be able to help you, or that you might be able to help. What does that kind of partnership look like?
Yeah, we sort of our perfect client is a big developer with social and corporate responsibility and standards that that matter. So we want people that care about all the things that we care about, like high quality construction, safe construction, sustainable construction. They tend to be the situations we do best in, because we can offer the most value because we're professionals set up to deal with professionals in a professional environment. Or we can and we have in the past worked with high net individuals where we bring the structure to them. If they've got the money to spend, we're happy to work with them, and we obviously we trust them. So we can bring and apply structure to that. So the project actually gets delivered in the way they want, but in a manner that suits our delivery side of it. Um, yeah, and sorry, another thing I should mention is we're very much technology led. So the future for us is continuing to lean into technology, continuing to keep our overhead down and our rates competitive. Being a new business, we've got a distinct advantage there where we don't have old structures. We've very much grown up around and with technology being part of it. So if anybody comes into our business, they can expect to have tech tools at their disposal. So we'll continue obviously to do that as well.
Very good. Brilliant. Well, Tom, thanks very much for being a guest. Anything else you want to share?
No, it's been great to be a guest, and keep up the good work.
Yeah, well, we'll make it very easy for anyone who wants to get in touch with you. So hopefully you'll make a few connections there. So Tom O'Toole, Bloom Construction. Cheers, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks for listening. As I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, this podcast was created to celebrate the success stories of seven-figure business owners, giving them a platform to share their insights and lessons learned in order to inspire other business owners. As well as that, it's an opportunity to build new connections. So if you're a seven-figure business owner or someone who works with seven-figure business owners and you're looking for introductions to potential stakeholders, strategic partners and clients, I'd love to hear from you or have you on as a guest and see if I can help make those connections for you. Just go to synergycfosolutions.co. That's synergycfosolutions.co and click podcast. On that page, you'll find the link to apply.